thought-provoking dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Lome, 1 p.m. in Lagos. Good afternoon and thank you for tuning in to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. This is Newslink. Here are the top stories. Opposition political groups and CSOs in Togo rally against the country's transition to a parliamentary system.
Nous sommes dans une dynamique de contestation de la bêtise qu'ils appellent.
We reject the so-called New Republic, a move that insults the dignity of our nation. The country has become a global laughingstock.
Nous sommes devenus aujourd'hui la risée du monde entier.
Ghana's main opposition, New Patriotic Party, NPP, leads a demonstration against the suspension of the Chief Justice. Similarly, in Mali, young political leaders marched to denounce the dissolution of political parties decree amid tensions with military supporters.
La vérité, la démocratie, la République.
We are ready to die for the truth, democracy and the republic. Those inciting young people against one another are harming the nation. Let it be clear, our fight for democracy will continue. We will pursue it by all legal means.
Et nous continuons à le faire.
On the diplomatic front, Dakar and Libreville agreed to deepen strategic ties to promote regional influence. Stay with us for more of these stories.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone and beyond the sub-region. This broadcast begins with a sequence of governance issues first in Togo, where tensions are rising as opposition parties and civil society groups rally against the country's transition to a parliamentary system. They have described the shift as authoritarian. United under a newly formed ad hoc working group, they held a mass protest in the capital, Lome, denouncing the establishment of the Fifth Republic and the recent appointments at the helm of state. Imoredet has the details in the following report.
Several opposition political parties in Togo have rejected the newly inaugurated Fifth Republic following Saturday's election of Faure Gnassingbé as president of the council and Jean-Lucien Kwasi de Tove as president of the republic. Key opposition groups, including the Democratic Forces for the Republic, FDR, and the National Alliance for Change, ANC, are accusing the government of orchestrating an authoritarian power grab under the guise of constitutional reform.
Nous sommes dans une dynamique de contestation de la bêtise qu'ils appellent.
We reject the so-called New Republic, a move that insults the dignity of our nation. The individual named as president lacks both legitimacy and credibility. This is not the choice of the people. Most Togolese do not support it, and as a result, the country has become a global laughingstock.
Nous sommes devenus aujourd'hui la risée du monde entier.
Faure Gnassingbé, now the first president of the council in Togo's history, was appointed during a plenary session in the National Assembly. His appointment was in line with Article 47 of the new constitution, adopted on May 6, 2024. He has pledged to unify the Togolese people around shared goals of national unity and sustainable development. On the same day, in a joint session of the National Assembly and Senate, Jean-Lucien Kwasi de Tove was elected president of the Republic. Nominated by the parliamentary majority, he was approved unanimously by all 150 voting members, assuming his new role in the presence of traditional leaders, international envoys from Niger, Burkina Faso and the United Nations, and members of the diplomatic corps. But this new political arrangement has sparked growing concern. Opposition parties and civil society actors see it as a move to consolidate power and undermine democratic checks and balances. They have announced plans for continued protests and civic actions in the days ahead.
A report by WADR's Lome correspondent and voiced by Imoredet. In Mali, several young political leaders defended democracy following the repeal of the law regarding political parties. The young Malians announced their position during a press conference on Sunday when they signed the manifesto. They also called for a return to constitutional order and respect for multi-party politics. The meeting was, however, obstructed by supporters of the military who gathered outside the press house in Bamako, accompanied by thousands of security forces. Christopher Ticho tells us more.
While many young people from political parties were locked inside, opposing the dissolution of political parties, supporters of the transition attempted to force their way in to oppose them. They were eventually stopped by the police, who blocked all entrance. Abubakar Bengali, a member of the Collective for the Defense of the Military, shared his view.
We are here today driven by hopes and ambitions of the Malian people. Mali needs leadership that can deliver real progress, unlike those who governed in the past who proved incapable.
Despite the tensions surrounding the building, the young politicians were able to read their manifesto before being evacuated from the room. Hamidou Doumbia, one of the members of the manifesto, shared his statement.
La vérité, la démocratie, la république.
We are ready to die for the truth, democracy and the republic. Those inciting young people against one another are harming the nation. Let it be clear, our fight for democracy will continue. We will pursue it by all legal means.
Nous sommes prêts dans toute la légalité à nous battre et nous continuerons à le faire.
Mohamed Lamine Sissoko, a political activist, pointed the finger at the authorities, accusing them of supporting the demonstrators.
It is evident that the current authorities, through certain individuals, are supporting these youths to prevent us from holding our press conference. But this is just the beginning of our struggle. We will fight until Mali is free, until freedom, justice, democracy, and genuine multi-party politics prevail.
For the records, on Saturday, a political party meeting was also blocked at the Palace of Culture.
A report by WADR's Bamako correspondent Aliyu Chaman, voiced in our studios by Christopher Aticho. In neighboring Côte d'Ivoire, the political climate is becoming tense by the day as supporters of former Ivorian leaders Laurent Gbagbo and Guillaume Soro continue to denounce their removal from the electoral roll. They have staged protests in France against their removal from the electoral list ahead of the October 2025 presidential election. Demonstrators gathered at the European Parliament to voice their opposition, calling on the international community, particularly the European Union, to intervene in the escalating electoral tensions in Côte d'Ivoire. The protesters expressed outrage over the exclusion of these two prominent figures from the race, accusing the EU of playing a role in installing President Alassane Ouattara and by extension holding some responsibility for the current electoral situation. They are urging the EU to press the RHDP government to open the electoral process to all candidates. Other figures, including Tijan Cham and Charles Goudé, are also unable to submit their candidacies for the upcoming election. And in Ghana, hundreds of people, largely members of the main opposition New Patriotic Party (NPP), have taken to the streets to protest the suspension of Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono. Singing and chanting, they vented their frustration during the NPP-led demonstration. The party and some allied political parties claim the suspension by President John Dramani Mahama is an attempt by the executive to exert control over the judiciary. On Tuesday, April 22, President Mahama suspended Chief Justice Tokono after a prima facie case was established regarding 3 separate petitions seeking her removal. The decision made under Article 146, subsection 6 of the 1992 Constitution followed consultations with the Council of State. A 5-member committee has since been set up to investigate the allegations. Addressing the media, Minority Leader Alexander Afeomakin called on judges and judicial service staff to join the protest against the suspension.
Practitioner of the court, I'm humbly calling on all judges, all judicial service staff to think deep about tomorrow, not to be too comfortable, because today some government officials are promising judicial service staff and the judges of promotion. So you are comfortable, you don't want to speak up. We will speak up for the sake of posterity. We will speak up for the sake of posterity. And then again, we have seen a sudden intimidation of judges. So there is fear. Look at this Kwabena Dubuanyi case, for instance. A judge is transferred, and when somebody is on bail, now the Attorney General is able to say that there are some exceptional circumstances that the person must be remanded, and a judge, a high court judge, decides to say, I'm remanding a state intelligence official, somebody who has committed 20 years of his adult life to serve the state as an intelligence officer, is thrown back to on remand. And the judge sat and said he's granting the wishes of the Attorney General. Really? What is happening? Let's be careful. As a nation, all we have is our democracy. Should things get out of hand, we may not be able to control it. So I'm signaling us as a political class, we need to proceed with caution.
Minority leader in Ghana's parliament, Alexander Afenyo-Markin.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
As a reminder, we're on Facebook at WADR English Service and stream live on WADR.org. Let's now take you to Nigeria, where security operatives in the North Central region have intensified efforts to contain violence. In Benue State, police tactical squad have reportedly killed 3 notorious bandits in a gunfight as authorities battle to dismantle criminal networks destabilizing communities in the Sankera axis. Recall that 2 weeks ago, armed men stormed several communities in Benue State and killed more than 50 people, mostly farmers. WADR's Usman Umar reports.
The Nigeria Police Force says it has killed 3 suspected bandits during a gun battle in Sankera, a restive area in Nigeria's Benue State, where armed groups have terrorized residents for years. According to police sources, the confrontation occurred on the evening of May 3rd, following intelligence that armed men from Shille and Okum were gathering to plot fresh attacks on security operatives. Acting on the tip-off, police tactical teams traced the suspects to Tsegondo, a forested area in Sankera. Upon arrival, the operatives came under heavy fire but swiftly responded, engaging the bandits in a fire exchange that left 3 of them fatally wounded. The suspects were taken to a nearby hospital but were confirmed dead on arrival. Recovered from the scene were 2 locally made pistols and live cartridges. Police say several other bandits fled with injuries, including a notorious figure known as Baba Gule. The group is believed to operate under the command of Konyo Amaka, a known gang leader in the region. Authorities suspect the failed attack was a retaliatory strike for the recent killing of Sugen Ayu, another gang member who died in a previous shootout with security forces on April 29. Efforts are underway to track down the fleeing suspects and dismantle the criminal network threatening fragile peace in the Sankera region and its surroundings. In recent times, violent attacks by armed groups on villages in the north-central region of Nigeria, leading to deaths of hundreds of people and destruction of livelihoods, have raised serious concerns, prompting President Bola Tinubu to demand an end to the killings by security forces. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
And just before the break, Dakar and Libreville have agreed to forge a new path in African diplomacy. Under the leadership of Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Gabon's Brice Oligui Nguema, the 2 nations are building a strategic partnership that extends beyond traditional regional lines. They hope for this strategic collaboration to shift the dynamics of power and cooperation across the continent. Augustine Kole reports.
Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Gabon's transitional leader Brice Oligui Nguema are reinforcing bilateral cooperation through a series of high-level engagements and joint initiatives. President Faye attended the inauguration of his Gabonese counterpart over the weekend at the Agonje Stadium in Libreville. His presence highlighted the growing diplomatic engagement between the 2 countries, which has intensified since both leaders took office, Faye through elections in March 2024 and Nguema following the August 2023 military transition in Gabon. Prior to his current role, Nguema held various posts in Gabon's military, including aide-de-camp to former President Omar Bongo, military attaché in Dakar, and commander-in-chief of the Republican Guard. The cooperation between Senegal and Gabon now spans multiple sectors. During Oligui Nguema's official visit to Dakar in December, President Faye stated that the bilateral agreement covers politics, security, education, vocational training, youth development, sports, and economic affairs. The visit concluded with a pledge to elevate the partnership further. On the diplomatic front, Gabon has endorsed Senegal's candidate Amadou Hott in the race for the presidency of the African Development Bank. Senegal's Foreign Minister Yassine Fall visited Libreville in February to officially express appreciation for Gabon's support. This collaboration links West and Central Africa through what officials describe as a South-to-South partnership framework. Current efforts include joint projects in security cooperation, youth training programs, and regional economic initiatives. Both countries continue to signal their intention to deepen coordination in multilateral and continental platforms.
Augustine Coley reporting there. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. We are live on wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Opposition political groups and CSOs in Togo rally against the country's transition to a parliamentary system of government. Ghana's main opposition, New Patriotic Party (NPP), leads a demonstration against the suspension of the Chief Justice. Similarly, in Mali, young political leaders marched to denounce the dissolution of political parties' decree amid tensions with military supporters. Still ahead in the news, President Bouakai reaffirms Liberia's commitment to a new era of diplomacy and development. We also have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us. Liberian President Joseph Bouakai has reaffirmed the nation's commitment to a new era of diplomacy and development. This pronouncement came during the relaunch of the Gabriel Dennis Foreign Service Institute, which features as ambassadorial lecture and seminar series aimed at enhancing Liberia's diplomatic engagements. The president underscored pivotal moments in Liberia's past, including its founding role in the League of Nations, which set the stage for the establishment of the African Union. From Monrovia, Abraham Parker reports.
During a lecture centered on the arrest agenda, a strategic framework aimed at rejuvenating Liberia's foreign policy and addressing the nation's pressing challenge, President Joseph Bouakai reflected on the rich legacy of Liberia's diplomatic history. He recalled Liberia's foundational role in global affairs, including its membership in the League of Nations and the pivotal Sani Kode Conference, which laid the groundwork for the establishment of the African Union.
Our goal is to strategically position Liberia within ECOWAS and other sub-regional to amplify our voice and leadership while benefiting from collective approaches. We shall continue to pursue access to the international market with both Liberia's agriculture sector.
Also speaking at the occasion, Liberia's Foreign Minister Sarah Beslo Yanti highlighted the progress made in restoring the country's image on the global stage. She pledged to further elevate Liberia's international presence, announcing plans by her ministry to work toward securing a seat for Liberia on the United Nations Security Council.
A country that helped to birth democracies on this continent, freedom fighters sought refuge here in Liberia. A founding member, especially from Africa, that has never had a full mandate on the Security Council is unacceptable. I stand here today as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, supported by Deputy Ministers, Assistant Ministers, to deliver the Security Council seat.
This renewed diplomatic push marks a hopeful new chapter in Liberia's journey toward a more stable, prosperous, and globally engaged future. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The guest segment takes us back to Togo, where the Fifth Republic has been rejected by opposition political parties. The groups are planning further demonstrations in the coming days across the country. Togolese civil society has also reacted to this change of regime. Unsurprisingly, it also denounces and states that it does not recognize Jean-Lucien Savy-Tové as president of the Republic or former President Faure Gnassingbé as the head of government. Nathaniel Olympio is spokesperson for the Hands of the Constitution movement. He speaks on the subject.
Listen, what we've witnessed here is a culmination of rape on the conscience of every Togolese person. What's happening in Togo is extremely serious. Here is someone, Faure Gnassingbé, who has been in power for 20 years. And in 20 years, he's done almost nothing serious for the Togolese people. And now, suddenly, he decides to change the constitution and grant himself a presidency for life. But the Togolese people cannot accept this, and are protesting this constitutional coup d'etat loudly and vigorously. And simply put, the country is being dragged into political disorder, and we can't tolerate that any longer.
How do you assess his election by parliament?
Justement, M. Faure Gnassingbé n'a jamais été élu. Il n'a jamais été candidat.
Faure Gnassingbé was never elected. He was never a candidate. In fact, it was his party friends who decided that he would be the one to preside over Togo's destiny. It's a shame. And you know, when Mr. Faure Gnassingbé takes the oath of office, he can't be trusted. Someone who has just violated the constitution and completely replaced it. The same person comes along and says, I swear on the constitution, but he can't be trusted, he can't be taken seriously. That's why the Togolese are angry. The Togolese cannot support or accept this constitutional coup because of what's at stake. It's a presidency for life, and spending 20 years where he has contributed practically nothing to the Togolese people. The Togolese people cannot allow this to take root.
Que cela s'enracine. Impossible.
Do you also have an issue with Jean-Lucien Savy-Tové, who was appointed honorary president of the Republic under the new constitution?
Écoutez, tout ce que le régime est en train de faire pour...
Listen, everything the regime is doing to ensure that Faure Gnassingbé remains in power forever is of no interest to the Togolese people. Savy-Tové, who is retired, who came out of retirement so that he would be someone who could not do anything.
Parce que trop, c'est trop.
And what actions are you going to take next?
Mais il n'y a pas 150 000 actions. Je pense que le peuple togolais...
There aren't 150,000 actions. I think the Togolese people, for whom all demonstrations are banned, will eventually defy these bans and come out en masse to express their anger and revolt. This is the only solution imposed on the Togolese people, and the Togolese people will eventually express themselves in this way. We have no other instrument.
De cette façon-là, on n'a pas d'autres instruments.
Mr. Nathaniel Olympio, is there any hope that Togo will return to the old regime?
Les Togolais veulent retrouver leur dignité pour commencer.
The Togolese want to regain their dignity. To begin with, the Togolese want to regain their freedom. And in fact, it's not even a question of the regime. When it was a presidential regime, there was a dictatorship. They established what they call a parliamentary regime, which isn't one, but for the sole purpose of retaining power. So public policies don't change. Governance doesn't change. Corruption is still there, and impunity and violence are still there. It's not a question of regime. It's that the Togolese people today want to put an end to this dictatorship. That's the only objective the Togolese are pursuing today.
Objectif que les Togolais poursuivent aujourd'hui.
Nathaniel Olympio, spokesperson for the Hands of the Constitution movement in Togo. Up next is sports segment with Sankule Janko.
In sports, CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations reigning champions Senegal were held to a 1-1 draw by Central African Republic in a closely contested Group C encounter. The Senegalese youngsters took the lead thanks to Secham's strike before Jürgen Pengazonia equalized for CAR. Senegal now turn their attention to their next assignment in West African duel against Ghana as they look to bounce back and secure a place in the knockout stages. Nigeria were held to a goalless draw by Morocco in a tightly contested Group C encounter at the 30 June Air Defense Stadium on Sunday. The Nigerians could not replicate their 1-0 win against Tunisia as the Moroccans kept them at bay. With the result, both nations will have to wait a little longer to secure a place in the knockout stages, with their final group matches set to be decisive. Elsewhere, Tunisia came from behind to claim a much-needed 3-1 victory over Kenya in their second Group B match at Dakar Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. The Tunisians bounced back from their 1-0 defeat to Nigeria to put their Under-20 AFCON campaign on track. Debutants Sierra Leone continued their impressive run at the CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2025 with a narrow 1-0 win over Tanzania in Group A at the Swiss Canal Stadium on Saturday. Samuel Gandhi's close range finished in the 37th minute, awarded following a VAR check, proved decisive in a tight contest as Sierra Leone recorded back-to-back victories. The victory earned Sierra Leone a place in the quarterfinals of the competition. And that's it for sports.
Sports was brought to you by Sankule Janko. And with that, we conclude this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Fali Lusso and Sheikh Njai for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR English, on Facebook at WADR English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a replay of our health flagship program, Well Body, with Imo Edet, and the second edition of our comprehensive news package in French, Info Chez Vous, comes up at top of the hour of 1 p.m. with Alpha Abubakar. I'm Abdullah Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0.